please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, that's a significant headline that you've given us, Ruchir, that India has the highest number of millionaires leaving the country. And, you know, since you talked about domestic investment, yesterday we had a session here with business leaders, and Deep Kalra, who, in a sense, is part of the startup ecosystem and, of course, has now been around for more than a decade. His point was that India has taken Atithi Devo Bhava to a whole entire level, where you're welcoming foreign direct investment, you're welcoming foreign companies, but at the cost of domestic entrepreneurs, domestic entrepreneurship, and not providing a level playing field. Does this number that you just gave us, in your mind, also perhaps have something to do with the point that Deep made?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's absolutely true because, you know, like you go to Dubai today and like you're likely to meet more Indians out there than you're likely to meet in a restaurant in like Bombay or Delhi or something like that. You know, like, so you can see as to where the capital is fleeing, what the magnets for capital are, Dubai, Singapore, of course, back in like the US and UK. So that I think is definitely the point. But, you know, as I say about India, that what's fascinating for me, I wear many hats. One of them is that of a foreign investor as well.
Yes.
What's fascinating about this country is that how this country keeps on rising. So in fact, I know that your thing is India rising. My thing is that this country is forever rising, you know, whatever you want to sort of make out of it, right? So that it's on a continuous sort of upward march, but it's a sort of chaotic march, and for every sort of positive story, there's a negative story. So what's happening in India, as you said, many domestic sort of people are leaving, and also the fact that the big are getting bigger. But this also remains a dream for investors like us. And why do I say that? The highest number of quality companies in the world, in any developing country, but I'd say in the world, at least as a share, we find in India. Over the last 5 years, there have been about 70 companies in India with a sort of market cap of at least $1 billion, which have doubled in value. You don't get that kind of sort of richness in other sort of emerging markets. In places like Brazil, we can find 10, 20. Russia, we can barely find half a dozen. So on one side, you have this crony capitalism, you know, which sort of is out in all its ugly display. On the other side, you have these incredibly good Indian companies that have given a lot of value back to investors, and they're very high quality in terms of, if you look at the metrics like return on equity, consistent earnings growth, India ranks right up there compared to any nation in the world if you take it as a share of the total companies listed out here, which is quite large. So it's a country that we always want to be engaged with.
Sure.
But obviously we keep looking at the fact that what more could be done for India to have, you know, become like the next China. That's really been the sort of dream of so many of us who have sort of been studying development economics and who've been in awe of China's rise since the 1990s. And there I find that no matter what happens, no matter what the politics is, we consistently sort of disappoint in terms of being the next China. As an economic story.
You know, Paul Krugman was talking about how there has been a greater degree of convergence between India and the path that advanced economies are taking in the last 30 odd years. But I'll come to China in just a second. I want to, you know, continue to talk about where you see the markets in India, Ruchir. And you talked about how you continue to be confident in investing in specific Indian companies that meet all the parameters and the matrix that you've laid out for us. Is it harder to find value in India today, given where prices are, given where valuations are?
You know, the biggest cliche in the world I find is that the easy money has already been made, right? Because you look back at the past and you find that it's been done. So I don't think that, you know, like, there's always going to be opportunity out here. Yes, the fact is that a lot of optimism had crept in, and some of that optimism is getting deflated very quickly. But I don't think that this is ever going to be a market which is going to sort of like just tank and you know, be like Turkey and stuff. I see enough opportunities. I don't think that, that we are sort of sufficiently engaged. We see enough opportunity. There are enough high quality companies available out here. And the good thing, as I said about this market, I know there's so much focus on this conference about politics. You know, that how much politics matters, elections are coming up, what's going to happen as far as elections are concerned.
You think it doesn't matter at all?
Exactly. And
or it's limited?
No, I think that the importance of politics in the Indian context is way exaggerated. So I love following politics. I travel every time there's a major election in India. I spend a week traveling with a band of people to figure out what really is happening in that election. It's fascinating. But one thing I've learned over the years is that do not draw any inference from the election results on what's going to happen to the economy or to the markets. And the markets is very interesting. We think of markets as this sort of very efficient beast. The markets have always been, the Indian market has always been wrong, at least initially, about the politics. And what do I mean by that? If you look at it, in 2004, when the UPA first came to power, the market was limit down for a couple of days. It was basically shut, right? Because there was such pessimism about what would happen under their regime. Instead, you ended up getting one of the biggest bull markets because we had this massive global boom which was going on. 2009, the opposite happened. The UPA gets re-elected, and on the back of that, now all of a sudden, all those same analysts who were skeptical about UPA think that a government's come back, we get political stability, and the market was limit up the next day. And after that, we had one of the, like a pretty severe downturn as far as the economy was concerned, again, because of global reasons. In the late 1990s, too, similar patterns played out. When the Vajpayee government lost its vote of confidence by 1 vote, the market was again sort of limit down, and then it began its upturn. So my entire point is that it's fascinating to watch politics, but the economy is such, and the natural momentum is such that regardless of what happens in politics, a basic sort of trajectory for the economy will continue.